Hi, welcome to the Yarn and Yarns YouTube channel. My name is Angela and all of the places you can find me should be linked in the description box just below this video. Welcome to a Yarn and Yarns Extra video. In this video later on I plan on taking you on a tour through my handspun stash. I've been watching the lovely Lisa, who is Soulful Spinner, here on YouTube and over on Instagram. Lisa has the most delightful videos. She's very passionate about spinning yarn from fleece that you have prepared yourself. So she's a self-proclaimed collector of fleeces, and she speaks with such joy and such passion about fibre preparation and making yarn from your own prepared fleece rather than commercially prepared fibre. She totally has me believing that I could do it, and I want a fleece, and one day I will, I'm sure. This coming weekend was the date for the Wonderwall Fibre Festival here in Wales, which obviously has been cancelled given the current circumstances. It's probably a good thing, because I reckon, having watched Lisa's videos, I would be coming home from that festival with a fleece and some combs and getting stuck in. If you're interested in spinning, I would highly recommend Lisa's video, and she asked people if they would share their handspun stash, so that's what I'm going to do later on. But for now, as you can see, I'm down at my beach. I'm taking my daily excursion out of the house. Beach is pretty much empty as always. I think I've seen one person so far. So I'm sat here listening to the sound of the waves. It's beautifully warm. There is a breeze, but it's quite a gentle breeze compared to a few of the days that we've had. And I'm sat here doing some work on just a plain vanilla sock that I started a little while ago. I'm going in and picking up stitches ready to put in the heel on the first sock. And my yarn has got stellina in it. It's sparkling away in the sun. So yes, I am going to spend a joyful half an hour doing that and being outside, spending time in nature before I go home and make the rest of this video for you. This is one happy face right now. I am pretty convinced I just saw an Oystercatcher, which is my absolute favourite bird, and I've never seen one here on the beach in Penarth before. Couldn't get close enough, but it definitely had that characteristic bobby walk with the long beak. I was looking into the sun, so I couldn't tell for sure if it was orange, but then it picked up and flew away and had that distinctive sort of black and white wing pattern. Oh, so beautiful. What did you think, any of you bird lovers out there? Was that last little brainy clip an Oystercatcher? Hopefully. I'd love to see it again. I love those birds so much. I could sit and watch those for hours. But enough bird chat. I am home, and as promised, I'm going to give you a little tour of my handspun stash and show you some of the things that I've made from handspun yarn too. If you watched my how do you store yours video, you'll know that most of my yarn lives in plastic most of the time, as in it's wrapped in plastic bags to keep it clean and to keep the insects away. But that's not very exciting to show you stuff wrapped in plastic, is it? So I have got myself a little basket, and I'm going to show you little sections of my handspun stash at a time. Most of the stuff that I've spun, I've kept a rough date of when I've spun it over on my Ravelry page, but before we get into the meat of my handspun stash, I thought I'd show you a couple of things that I made from my very first handspun yarns. My first ever spindle spun yarn was some North Ronaldsy, which came in a kit from Hilltop Cloud. So I bought a basic spindle with 2 clumps of North Ronaldsy, one in a natural lovely brown colour and the other in just a natural sort of cream colour. And the yarn that I spun is in this gnome, or at least some of it. I've got a little bit of this brown left over. It's very lumpy bumpy, all over the place. You can see lots of sort of texture on the back of that gnome. But yeah, that was my very, very first handspun yarn. Went into a wee gnome. I didn't knit with it straight away. I think I probably knitted a couple of other handspun things before I discovered the delights of these gnomes. And this green up here was one of the very first attempts I made at spinning a single, I think. Yeah. Which again, super lumpy bumpy. You can see all of the texture in that. But I thought they looked really nice together. I think possibly the very first things that I knit from my handspun yarn were a few of these little hearts, which I think is a pattern by Susan B. Anderson. I'll have it on my project page over on Ravelry, so I'll link that below. And again, this was spindle spun yarn from a sample that I had either from Fondant Fibre or Bakewell Hearts. I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember now. But I decided... I'd watched a few videos about handspun yarn, and one of the tips is always like knit with your handspun. If you want to improve things and get the yarn that you want, knit with it. But I was spinning a lot of these little bits and pieces and didn't really have enough to make a sort of large project. So I think I made 3 or 4 of these hearts, and some of them I gifted to friends, and this one I kept for myself. But maybe the very first thing I knit from handspun yarn was actually not my handspun. I purchased a skein of someone else's handspun from one of the Spinners Guild stalls at Wonderwall, and it was the colours that grabbed me. I think you can see they're my favourite autumnal tones. I have no idea what this fibre is. It's quite rough and rustic, and I literally used every gram that I had to make this pair of wristers. And I wear these lots. In fact, so much so that if I just pop this one on, you'll see that the stitching around the thumb is starting to burst open. It needs a bit of repair. But these are great in the winter. They've pilled quite a lot. They've bubbled up. They've fluffed up. But yeah, I love these. They are such a gorgeous colour, and really got me even more interested than I was before in handspun yarn and the beautiful sort of colour effects that you can get from a lovely dyed fibre. So as I say, I've popped some of my handspun into a basket, and I'll swap things out as we go along. And so I pulled out a bunch of like the bigger sort of skeins and quantities that I've spun up and pop them into this basket. Aren't there some gorgeous colours in here? So some of these I've spun quite recently, so you'll probably remember them if you've been watching over the last couple of weeks. So this was some lovely fibre that was sent to me by my friend Caroline, and it was the first skein that I spun up and plied up entirely on my Ashford traditional. And my Ashford is an older version of the traditional. It's from the early 80s, I think. I haven't yet spent time figuring out exactly when. There's some good information on the Ashford website showing you how you can figure that out. So yeah, I've spun that one up, and then other things in my basket. This is the most recent yarn that I spun, so I showed that off last week. I've got some Shepherd's Hut merino, which I spun quite recently. I've got that lovely bright green fibre. Again, that was another gift from Caroline. This gorgeous skein is some beautiful Polworth fibre that was dyed by the lovely Jenny, who is Owl About Yarn. This was my first and only try so far with Polworth, and it was so beautiful to work with. I'm hoping that she might get some more to dye and pop in her shop at some point. Fingers crossed. This blue skein here was my first play around with some Corriedale. I purchased this from an Etsy seller, and it's got some Stellina sparkles mixed in there. I think this was called the unicorn colour or something like that. I think you can see all of those beautiful fun tones popping in. And then the final thing in this basket are these skeins at the back. This was some Rolags, my first attempt at spinning from Rolags. And these gorgeous natural tones with some beautiful sort of mauvey pink mixed in there. And then I've got 3 skeins that are all Blueface Leicester yarn, and these were all naturally dyed by Nellie and Eve, and this was the first lot that I've spun up from the Nellie and Eve naturally dyed or plant dyed fibre club. So yeah, these are all 100 grams or more skeins in this basket. The next basket of handspun loveliness is the stuff that I spun in the Tour de Fleece last year. And if you're not familiar, the Tour de Fleece is an event in the hand spinning world, which coincides with the Tour de France. So for the time that the cyclists ride that race, spinners hop on their wheels and spin along as they're watching. And during last year's Tour de Fleece, I spun these beauties. Now, I was spinning for Team Hilltop Cloud, so most of the fibre in here is Hilltop Cloud. The only stuff that isn't is this stuff at the front, which was a beautiful braid of Cheviot from Wildcraft, which I'm hoping to turn into my very first pair of handspun socks. I need to get these on the needles. Something else in the basket is Hilltop Cloud fibre, and there was a special colourway for last year's Tour de France called the Pays de Gaule, and I knit my skein of Pays de Gaule into this lovely rice slip hat, which is a pattern by Willy Wormhead, and I love this hat. And I added a button that I picked up from Farfield Mills just outside of Sedbergh in Yorkshire, which uses some hand woven fabric to create that button. So yeah, that was the special Tour de Fleece colourway from last year, but I also spun all of these. So this was a skein from the Time Travellers Club, which I picked up on D-Stash. It's this gorgeous golden yellow colour with some stellina in. Hopefully you can see that sparkling away just about on the camera. And then these were quite fun. So the ones at the front, all of these little, let me just pop the basket down and hold those up. These were spun from naturally dyed merino that I picked up from Hilltop Cloud at Wonderwall last year, and I just mixed and matched and played with the colours. So I basically spun up each colour and then I plied them together, and then I just took strands of the varying colours and plied them up in different colour combinations. So I'm probably at some point these will all go into maybe a shawl or something like that. And the final skeins in that basket are these 5 skeins. Again, another bit of experimentation. I purchased the Cambrian gradient pack from Hilltop Cloud in the Steam colourway, and I also had some undyed Cambrian, and Cambrian is a blend of Blueface Leicester and Welsh Mule. So I decided to spin them up and then ply them together for some really fun mulled yarns. And again, at some point I'm sure I will figure out the perfect project to put all of these in together, because they need to stay together, don't they? Next basket of fun is this one, and there's a little less in this one, but these are all samples of breed specific yarns, so made entirely of one particular breed of sheep. The biggest quantity that I have in here is this little lot, Llan Wenog, which is a breed native to Wales, where I live, and I picked this up again from a small producer at Wonderwall, and I'd knit this up into what was going to be a hilltop shawl, but there wasn't quite enough yardage and I couldn't come up with anything that I really loved to finish that shawl off. This yarn is so silky and soft. I 2-plied it, and it's quite a low twist yarn. It was from this beautiful bat. It was literally like spinning a cloud. I spun this on my spindle and I just enjoyed every single moment of it. And so I unpicked that shawl recently. Actually, I did that on a vlog not so long ago, and I have reskeined this and soaked it and washed it again, and I'm hoping to make myself a lovely cowl from this yarn. It's literally, I wish you could reach through the screen and touch this because it's so soft and lovely. I also have some Wensleydale in here, and Wensleydale is one of my absolute favourite fibres. I know some people find it a little bit scratchy, but I love it. I absolutely adore it. And these were from Ustred, which again is another Welsh producer, and I picked these up at Wonderwall, and again spindle spun, that beautiful natural brown colour. What else do I have in here? I've got this grey. I'm not entirely sure. I know that it was from a bat, and it's definitely one breed of fibre. I am pretty sure of that, but I don't know what breed. It was a gift to me. And then I've got some Norfolk horn, which was a gift from Julie, that I recently spun up, which is lovely. I've got some Kent Romney, which was a little sample from Chimera Crafting, and I love the fibres that she has. I've got one more braid in my stash, and I'm so tempted to buy some more. She posted about having some more Hill Radnor, which is a rare breed fleece, and she also had some Whiteface Woodland, which I'm hoping she'll dye up soon and put in her shop so I can try some of that. So yeah, that was some Kent Romney. And then I have some of the Manx Lofton that I spun up recently on my spindle. It's always really fun working with those breed specific yarns, giving them a try, and just kind of getting to know the fibres and how they feel in your hands, and yeah, just playing with the different breeds. It's a lot of fun. And of course the largest spin that I've done to date is the yarn that I spun up for my weekender, which I need to get back to because it deserves to be knit. And I did this massive combo spin, and there are a couple of videos on the channel about the spin, and I ended up with this giant basket full of gorgeousness, hand spun loveliness. And yeah, I'm attempting to knit a weekender by Andrea Mowry from this yarn. Haven't got very far yet, and a couple of ribbing snakes, and yeah, I need to get back to this. Maybe I'll take this downstairs with me and get working on it. No, I'm trying to finish my love note, put that back in the corner, and maybe this will come out after my love note is done. I wonder how long this video is going to be. I think it's going to be quite long. I promise this is the last basket of a fibre. So these are all little bits and pieces, I guess mostly merino blends, but yeah, all sort of like little sample quantities in this final basket. There's some really fun things in here, and some things that I've got plans for and just haven't got round to doing anything with them. So this was some fun fibre from Fondant Fibre, and I spun up about 200 grams worth of this and gifted some of it to friends in my advent packages that I sent out to a few people, and I kept a little sample skein of that myself. I've got this gorgeousness which I spun from some Rolags that my lovely friend Jeanette made me, and I'd love to use this as part of a yoke in a sweater. I just haven't settled on a pattern yet, and I haven't got tons of meterage. I've got this and one other sample, so I'll have to have a careful think about my pattern choice for that. I've got this chain plied rainbow skein from some lovely Rolags from Siobhan's Crafts. I've got various little bits and pieces and samples, and I'm going to keep this one out because I'm actually going to use that, I think, in a current project that I've got going on. I've got this one, which was some fibre that I spun up recently from Marina Skewer, and it was a really interesting blend of I think it was flax and silk. I can't remember. There was all sorts of things that I'd not spun before in that little blended bat. I had this little art bat again from my friend Jeanette, which I spun up a little while ago. That was so much fun to spin, although my wheel did struggle with that one a little bit because of the different sort of textures. A little sample. Ooh, actually this one might be better for my project than this one. Yeah, I think so. This was a little sample from Nellie and Eve, one of the little extra skeins they sent in the Fibre Club, and this is a Romney BFL mix. Isn't that lovely? Keeping that one out. And then finally I've got these beautiful autumnal shades, which were some merino that were sent to me by my lovely friend Caroline, and I want to knit these up into a pair of wrist warmers similar to these just like really basic sort of striped wrist warmers, but again, just haven't quite found the time for that yet. Other than that, I've got a few bags of like bits and pieces, so little samples that I've spun up and then used mostly in gnomes and things like that, or in my really fun scrappy handspun project. I thought I'd show you a couple of the other bits that I've knit for my handspun before I sign off from this video. So the first was a really nice feather and fan style cowl, and I just made this pattern up, and it's again a set of sort of gradient fibre that was sent to me by my friend Caroline, all the greens, and I just spun them all up and knit them into this lovely cowl, which I wore a lot this winter. It sits really up nice close to the neck, and it, yeah, really lovely for keeping me warm during the winter months. Oh god, what a mess. Nice. And yes, so some of these leftover bits that I showed you were as a result from my Helix shawl, which is a pattern by Stephen West in the Wool Journey pattern book from Pom Pom Press. And I decided I needed a shawl of many colours, so I knit lots of my smaller samples of handspun up into that. And again, I wore this a ton this winter. It has all of the colours, so it pretty much goes with anything and everything, and it's so lovely and cozy and squishy. In here, look, can you see that stripe there? That's what I had left over after I knit up a few of these little hearts that I showed earlier. And then of course, most recently, I finished the Storm Shawl by Joji Locatelli from a lovely silk merino blend from Ashford Fibres. And yeah, this, I can't say that I could choose a favourite handspun project, but because I love the kind of like fun, over the top gloriousness of my shawl of many colours, but I think this pattern and this yarn combo, it's just one of those things that worked, you know you have those projects, sometimes they just work. I hope you enjoyed a little or not so little tour of my handspun stash. So yeah, in the comments below, tell me about your handspun yarn. Do you have a favourite fibre to spin with? I'm always interested to try new fibres and find out about what other people enjoy spinning. Do you have a favourite project that you've knit from your handspun yarn, or do you have a favourite skein of handspun yarn that's just sat there in your stash, that special skein that you're not quite sure what to do with, but you're just letting it ruminate and admiring it for the time being? As you know, I'm super nosy and I love to hear about those sorts of things, so please do leave a comment below. Until we get to spend some time together again, I hope that you get to do some of the things that you enjoy. Great big woolly hugs to you all. Bye for now.